Advised. And now, America's most exciting radio talk show, The Savage Nation. And here he is, Michael Savage.
I watched a movie last night on TV. I was exhausted. I'm getting over a cold, but it's spreading around my head now into my ear. You know, ear, nose, and throat. It's just moving around, the old virus. So I have an excuse now to be a child again. I kind of like having a minor illness because it gives me an opportunity. It's like I don't have to force myself to do anything. So I stayed in bed after the show, went right home, cooked spaghetti and nothing. Sometimes I want to have no dinner, just plain spaghetti and like cabbage, like in an Irish cottage. Steamed the cabbage and ate some spaghetti. And I watched a movie called Wonderland with Val Kilmer. Now, I had seen this movie before, but I'm going to talk about it for a reason. I was fascinated to watch it again. It's allegedly, first of all, it's about a period in time when it was, Val Kilmer plays Johnny Wad, who was a porn star of the time. And it's really not about him being a porn star, Johnny Wad, as played by Val Kilmer. It's about him being a drug addict and basically a minor drug dealer enmeshed in the entire Los Angeles Hollywood drug scene at that time. And it's a very eerie movie along the line of some other incredibly great movies made about that period, including Patty Hearst. Remember that movie, Patty Hearst? Amazingly perfect movie. The tone was right, the feeling, the music in the background. Well, in watching Wonderland, it brought back that whole era to me. I don't know whether it was the late 60s or early 70s, but in any case, it was a very, very dangerous time in America. It's a time when a lot of people made believe they were your brother when they were out to put a knife in your back. It was a time when drugs permeated every aspect of American life. Does it sound like today? Well, it is like today, only it was a little different in terms of style. And it's strange how the effects of that movie have affected me. I mean, the effects on me were quite profound in many ways. I looked back, turned it off, and I said, wow, boy, did I miss a bullet. Because, you know, there are, as Henry Miller wrote, each morning I wake up and 1,000 paths open up before me. See, only Henry Miller could have written that. But it's true for all of us. Each day I awaken and 1,000 paths open up before me. You know what that means. How many of you listening to this show could have gone down a wrong road? Or how many of you went down the wrong road and it took you 20 years to come back to the right road? How many of you are down a wrong road right now, want to come back to the straight and narrow, and don't know how to get back there? You've lost your way. See, that's the hardest thing, is that once you go so deep into the woods or into the desert, you can't even find your way back because you don't have a compass. And when there's no leadership in the country, and there's no one standing up there and saying, here's north, here's south, here's east, here's west, in other words, here's a moral compass for you, you don't know which way to turn. And we have that in the White House right now. Forget the man's left, right, center. We know what he is politically. In many ways, he's a fanatic left-wing Marxist. We understand that.
560 KSFO.
I have so many things I want to talk about all at once because I feel liberated from the election. I feel like I can finally think again, breathe again. I know you feel the same way. You're all burned out from it. It's the same over and over again. We're tired of it. So, okay, so that's why I'm moving on. But going back for a moment to the movie Wonderland, because I'm going to lead from there back into today and everything else, believe me. So I watched Wonderland, and allegedly it's about a murder that occurred in Hollywood back in the day, and it's the center of it all was the porn star Johnny Wad, played by Val Kilmer. But I'll tell you who stole the film was Josh Lucas. Josh Lucas was so menacing in this movie. There was a palpable feeling of Josh Lucas jumping out of the screen every time he appeared. The way he presented menace was so strong that you literally recoiled and set yourself up for a blow or to protect yourself from him. And that's how powerful he was in this movie. He plays a former, I think, 101st Airborne, either helicopter pilot or an Army pilot, one or the other, back from Vietnam, like many guys came back completely crazy from the war, totally hooked on drugs, major league drug addict, major league drug dealer, stoned 24 hours a day, and he presents that feeling that if you lived through this period of time, you know there were guys like this. Most of them, of course, are not around today. Most of them not around because they either burnt out or wound up, killed by the police because they were attacking and killing and needed to be put down by the only people we have to control them. But this is an amazing story. And what it didn't make any money, really. I don't think it made much money. It didn't gross very much worldwide. I don't know why this movie didn't do very much. John Holmes, a legend of the porn industry and revered in circles as a stud. But I think this is in the 80s, in early 80s is what it was. It's astounding, the movie. Does anyone know what I'm talking about, why I'm talking about it? So it brought back an awful lot of emotion in me, and then I went and dug into my past, and I reflected on where I am today. Now, coupled with that, before the movie, you know what I read? I told you it's going to be a discursive show, so please be patient with me. I read a small Civil War book written by Ambrose Bierce, who lived between 1842 and 1913. And he wrote short stories about the horrors of the U.S. Civil War. If you're a Civil War buff, an amateur, it doesn't matter. What was done to men is beyond comprehension during the Civil War. And, you read a book like that, and then you look at yourself and you look at your life and you realize, why are we all so mad at each other? Yes, Obama has done some terrible things in this country. And yes, he should be thrown out of office. But for God's sakes, slow down. Slow down. You don't want a civil war in this country. Don't let anyone from the left or the right steam you up to that point. You've got to understand what that means, what murder actually means. What it actually means to bash in another man's head with a pipe, or to stab a man in the chest with a bayonet, or to see a man chopped to pieces by a cannon fusillade. Now, I am trying to tell you something here, which is we live in one of the greatest countries in history. To me, the greatest nation on earth. I don't know of a better nation. I'm sure those of you who are liberal think that Holland or Sweden is better, and I say to you, good luck to you, move there. To me, this is still the promised land. It always has been. It always will be. Greatest country on earth. Most men can still go around without arms. Most men still can. There are certain areas where police won't even go, and that's because of the weakness of the federal government, who should crack down on the illegal aliens who are toting military-grade weapons. But, that's for another story. And then you have Obama granting amnesty to 215,000 El Salvadorans without a peep from the media. But slow down, I say to myself. Just back off. So, again, I want to go back to what I'm talking about. Yesterday I read Civil War scenes by Ambrose Bierce. Then I watch Wonderland, and I think about the violence that has been committed and could be committed against fellow human beings. And I think of man's inhumanity to man. I think of the poor boys who have come home from Iraq or Afghanistan either in a body bag and what it's done to their sweethearts and their mothers and their fathers and their children. Or I think of the body parts left behind because of the corporate greed, because there was no reason to go to Iraq whatsoever. It was all about the contract so far as I can tell. If you're not used to the Savage Nation radio show, I would say get used to it, because this is what I normally do, is what I'm doing today. To me, talk radio is bigger than that. For God's sakes, you know what I mean? Open up your f-stop, for God's sakes. Take it all in. So, I mean, I find great relief in movies and in reading, to be frank with you. So now I can go back to Wonderland, Ambrose Bierce, the Civil War. So Kate Bosworth plays Dawn Schiller. Stunning. Unbelievable. Great role. Didn't even know who she was. And terrific in that role. But as I say, the guy who really stole the whole scene was the one who plays the ex helicopter pilot from Vietnam. Eric Bogosian plays Eddie Nash, the Palestinian drug dealer. The guy who allegedly came over to Hollywood and ran a hot dog stand and was dealing drugs out of the hot dog stand and built it up into a chain of nightclubs in L.A. in that time and became a big dealer. And the cops couldn't touch him because he was so greased into the L.A. political scene. Amazing. Very well done. I didn't like the accent, but the way he portrayed it. Even Paris Hilton is in the movie as Barbie on a boat. She plays one. I couldn't believe it. I did a double blink. I said the has-been was in this movie. I enjoyed it again, but the violence in it was awesome. It was horrible to see what human beings are capable of doing to another human being without blinking an eye. But okay, I'm not a child. I understand that, which is why I have an attack poodle, a 10-pound attack poodle to protect me. Now, here's where I'm going with this. So the movie Wonderland portrays a certain time in America, okay? And it's strange to me how that time seems to now permeate the culture. It seems to me strange how that time seems to even permeate the White House under Obama. It seems to me that the mentality of those in Wonderland cleaned up their act, cut off their beards, put on suits, and went to work in the political scene, and they're all Democrats. That's the point I'm trying to make. It's actually frightening to believe that so many of them did survive that era and became lawyers and became politicians and became big Democrats. Yeah, I know it for a fact. You know I'm right. You know I'm right. I'm not saying that the Republicans are as clean as driven snow, but you know and I know that the largest degree of corruption in this country and the stink is mainly coming off the Democrat socialist side. I can give you one story after the other. It's frightening to behold every day. So if you'd like to comment on any of this, please do. Has anyone called on the movie Wonderland? Anybody? Nobody in the whole world? And there's not a person out there who knows what I'm talking about and why I'm excited to even relate that to today. All right, I'll move on. That's all. If you keep it up and you get me really mad, I'll read my old poetry. I'll really depress you. I'll start reading old poems from the 70s when no one knew me, which is really where I'm going with this. To be, you didn't know it. You didn't know it, but here's what I'm doing. Capering nimbly in a lady's chamber is not the title of my next book, but that is a phrase. Capering nimbly in a lady's chamber is a phrase from Richard III. Now, why do I quote that? It's to get your attention, because most of you are intimately involved with your own fantasies. So, you see, Richard III was writing a line like that, Shakespeare, capering nimbly in a lady's chamber. You can understand where I'm coming from, which is literature. So, as you well know, I had a novel published which did very, very well, despite the fact that it was ignored completely by the illiberals. It was 6 weeks on the New York Times list, which shows you how important they've become, that we can write a novel, we Neanderthalic right-wingers, and put it on the New York Times bestseller list without so much as a notice by the so-called leaders of the literary establishment in the United States of America. Not one review, except on Amazon. And the book did well. Where was I? Yeah, so I watched the movie, I read that, and that time comes back in my head, that period in American history. And I say, now Harper's is so interested in me as a writer that several publishers are now vying for my fiction. So they're saying to me, what did you write before we knew you? What did you write while you were a writer, per se? Saying, okay, this is every writer's dream. I'll be right back.
Join the Savage Nation. Call now, 855-400-SAVAGE, 855-400-7282. Savage.
So you need to find a plumber to replace your water heater. The question is, where are you going to look? Phone book? That got tossed in the recycling bin as soon as it hit your doorstep. Web search? Not unless you feel like sorting through an endless list of search results. And you're certainly not going to pay a subscription fee to get access to some list. What you need is someone to refer a local pro you can trust. What you need is home.homeadvisor.com. Home.homeadvisor.com gives you free access to a network of over 85,000 background check service professionals who have the expertise to help you with all your home repair and remodeling needs. It's the fast, free, and easy way to find top-rated local pros who've been rated and reviewed by homeowners like you. That's why over 25 million homeowners have trusted Home Advisor to find the quality home improvement professionals they're looking for. It's why you can too. Visit home.homeadvisor.com to find the service pros who can bring your home improvement dreams to reality. That's home.homeadvisor.com.
Good evening. I'm Carolyn Burns, Hot Talk 560 KSFO. Here's what's happening around the Bay Area. A verdict was reached today in the trial of a man accused of 3 violent sexual assaults on San Francisco's 21st Street last year, but he won't learn his fate until Tuesday. 32-year-old Frederick Dozier faces 26 charges for the attacks, which happened in June, November, and December of last year. Charges against Dozier include attempted murder, kidnapping, robbery, and other sexual assault charges. He faces life in prison if convicted of all